So this is one of the qualities of mindfulness, and you can hear it in the story, and you can feel it around the Dalai Lama. It's a quality of meeting experience with respect, to see with respect the measure of pain that we've been given, the measure of pleasure and beauty in our life, the stingy mind, the generous mind, the ignorant and deluded parts of ourselves, the hateful parts. Come on, you know. The spiteful parts, the loving parts, the wise parts. And mindfulness allows us to be present, to go, ah, yes, this too, without resisting or grasping. To actually see, this is the play of our humanity. This is the life we've been given. Now the Dalai Lama, in giving these teachings on dependent origination, because he's also trained as a geshe, which is a PhD in Tibetan philosophy, and he loves it, he's really a philosopher, he didn't just talk about respect, but he wanted to talk, or non-grasping, but he wanted to talk about emptiness and the contingency of all things, the middle way from the Madhyamaka middle way teachings. And he said it's not the Abhidhamma teachings which say that there are like these little atoms of experience, and it's not the Yogacharans and the Citta Mantra that say that it's all made of mind. When you come really closely to experience from the Madhyamaka teachings, you discover that whatever you say, this is what it is, isn't what it is. Nothing can be fixed, nothing can be held. Everything, because of this, that arises, because of that, the next thing arises, and everything in itself is transforming. And the real liberation comes from not clinging to a single thing, or a philosophy, or a view, even this one. That's sort of the short version. And what it means in practice, I mean, there's all these wonderful and sophisticated teachings. What it means in practice is not being a fundamentalist. And you can be a fundamentalist in anything. You could be a fundamentalist capitalist, or a fundamentalist socialist, a fundamentalist Republican, or a fundamentalist Democrat, you know, a fundamentalist Buddhist, God spare you, or your friends and family, actually, to be more accurate. A fundamentalist vegetarian, you know, a fundamentalist anything. It means actually living in this world with respect for the diversity and the complexity and the irony and the metaphor and the multiple levels of life that is our humanity. And with this presence, living in the present moment, not in the way that it's supposed to be, but in the reality of the present. And this is mindfulness, to actually live and see the person that we meet, not just with our memory and history and what they did and what they said and so forth, but who this person is now. To hold their hand the way the Dalai Lama does and say, oh, here we are in this amazing moment. To meet our own experience in this way. And there's an aliveness and a presence and a beauty to this quality. And when we experience this way, the world becomes alive around us. William Butler Yeats says, we can make our minds so like still water that beings gather around us that they may see their own images and so live for a moment with a clearer, perhaps even a fiercer life because of our quiet. And when we are in ourselves, which is another word for being mindful, when we are really present to the way things are, without judging and grasping and trying to control and resist, when we're truly present, we allow the gift of someone else to be themselves as well. Our presence and authenticity allows that in another. You know, the Dalai Lama went on, he said, you can't control much. I'm sure you've noticed that, right? He said there are billions of other humans and billions upon billions of other sentient beings. And then he used this old Tibetan saying, you know, which is a famous one in India too, if you're worried about, you know, sharp stones and difficult things piercing your feet, You can either cover the entire world with leather so that it will be comfortable, or you can wear shoes, right? And in some way, there are billions and billions of humans and other sentient beings. You can either try to change them, or you could do something a little simpler and change only one person. You know who, right? And that will allow your encounter with the billions of other sentient beings, no matter what those circumstances, to be transformed. People ask the Dalai Lama different questions, you know. What happens if you've got a really difficult person in your life, or a really difficult situation? You know, he laughed, of course, because he has a lot of that in his life at times. And he talked about the usual things you'd expect: patience, compassion, understanding from the other person's point of view, transforming difficulty into the place of awakening. It is the difficulties of life that make compassion grow. If we take it that way, they are the fire that brings the jewel of compassion to the heart, going through the difficulties. I mean, think about it. When have you learned the most, grown the most, developed the most? Has it been the easiest times? I mean, they have something to teach, and they're fine too, but really. So this is a little tiny one, a little poem. My neighbor's musical instrument of choice is the door. At first, I thought it was a major nuisance slamming. And then I saw it was really part of a kind of percussion sonata, and the aggravation dissolved. Now I observe how skillful this soloist is in his entrance and exit. So that's a little tiny one, right? But there it is. Somebody does whatever they do, they're doing their thing, and you can either make it into an aggravation, or you can say, oh, like John Cage, oh, this is a strange kind of music. How interesting.